I still remember the sound. That cold, mechanical click of the lock being changed on the door I had paid for with 32 years of my life. I stood there on my own porch, with grocery bags in my arms, watching my daughter-in-law through the window as she smiled at me. Not a warm smile. Not an apologetic smile. A smile that said, finally. And my son? My beautiful baby boy who I had carried for 9 months, nursed for fevers, worked double shifts to send to college? He stood behind her, arms crossed, looking at me like I was a stranger asking for spare change. "Mama," he said through the glass, "we talked about this. You need to respect our boundaries." Boundaries. That word still burns in my chest like hot coal. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to the beginning, so you can understand how a mother's love can be twisted into a weapon against her. How the child you would die for can become the very person who buries you alive. My name is Lorraine Mitchell. I'm 63 years old. And this is the story of how I lost everything and found myself. I grew up in a small house in Georgia with more love than money. My mama worked at the textile mill until her fingers were permanently curved like claws. My daddy drove trucks until his back gave out. They never had much, but they gave me everything that mattered: faith, work ethic, and the understanding that family is sacred. Lorraine, my mama used to say, rocking on that old porch swing, you pour love into your children like water into good soil. And one day, that love grows into something that shelters you when the storms come. I believed her. Lord, I believed her with everything I had. I married young, 19 years old, to a man named Robert Mitchell. He was handsome, hardworking, and made me feel like the only woman in the world. For 8 good years, we built a life together. We bought a little house with a red door. We planted tomatoes in the backyard. We dreamed about the family we'd have. Then came Marcus. The moment they placed that baby in my arms, something shifted in my soul. I had never known love like that, so fierce, so consuming, so terrifying in its intensity. I looked at his tiny fingers, his perfect ears, his eyes that seemed to hold all the wisdom of the universe, and I made a silent promise. I will give you everything. I will sacrifice anything. You will never know the struggle I knew. Robert felt the same way. For 5 more years, we were a happy little family of 3. Marcus was our son, and we revolved around him like grateful planets. Then the accident happened. Robert was driving home from a night shift at the factory. A drunk driver ran a red light. They told me he died on impact, that he didn't suffer. I don't know if that's true or if they just say that to widows to help them sleep at night. What I know is this: at 27 years old, I became a single mother with a 5-year-old son, a mortgage I could barely afford, and a grief so heavy it threatened to pull me under the earth. But I had Marcus. And Marcus needed me. So I didn't drown. I swam. I took on extra shifts at the hospital where I worked as a nursing assistant. I braided hair on weekends for extra money. I sold sweet potato pies at church fundraisers. I wore the same 3 work outfits for years so Marcus could have new sneakers when school started. I never complained. Not once. Because every time I felt tired, every time I felt sorry for myself, I would look at my son and remember my mama's words. I was planting seeds. Pouring water into good soil. One day, that love would grow into something that would shelter me. Marcus was a good boy. Smart, polite, ambitious. He got straight A's without me having to push him. He helped elderly neighbors with their groceries. He went to church every Sunday without complaint and sang in the choir with a voice that made the old ladies cry. That boy is going to be something special, people always told me. You raised him right, Lorraine. And I believed them. I believed I had done something right in a world that had taken so much from me. When Marcus got accepted to Howard University on a partial scholarship, I cried tears of joy for 3 days straight. But there was a gap, $15,000 a year that the scholarship didn't cover. I didn't hesitate. I took out a second mortgage on my house. The house Robert and I had bought together. The house where we had planned our entire future. "Mama, you don't have to do this," Marcus said when I told him. He was 18 then, tall and handsome like his father. "Yes, I do," I said, cupping his face in my hands. "You're going to be the first Mitchell man to graduate from college. You're going to have opportunities your daddy and I never had. This house is just wood and brick, baby. But your education? That's forever." He hugged me so tight that night. Promised he would make me proud. Promised he would take care of me when he got successful. I held on to those promises like a life raft. For 4 years, I worked even harder. I picked up overnight shifts at the hospital. I stopped buying myself anything, no new clothes, no salon visits, no little luxuries. Every spare penny went toward Marcus's education and living expenses. He called me every Sunday. Told me about his classes, his friends, his dreams of becoming a financial analyst. He sounded happy. He sounded grateful. And that was enough for me. Then, in his senior year, he met her. Victoria. I remember the first time he mentioned her name. Something in his voice changed, softer, more distracted. I smiled to myself. My boy was in love. It was natural. It was beautiful. I was happy for him. "I can't wait for you to meet her, Mama," he said. "She's amazing. Beautiful, smart, ambitious. Her family is from Connecticut. They have money, but she's not stuck up or anything. Her family has money." Something about the way he said it made my stomach tighten. But I pushed the feeling aside. I was being paranoid, I told myself. My son loved me. He knew where he came from. No amount of money could change that. The first time I met Victoria, it was at Marcus's graduation. I had saved up for 6 months to buy a plane ticket to Washington, D.C. I bought a new dress, the first new dress I'd purchased in 3 years. I got my hair done. I wanted to look my best for my son's big day. I spotted them waiting for me outside the auditorium. Marcus looked so handsome in his cap and gown, my heart nearly burst. And next to him stood Victoria. She was beautiful, I'll give her that. Light-skinned with long, flowing hair and designer clothes that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. She had the kind of effortless elegance that comes from never having to struggle for anything. "Mama!" Marcus hugged me, lifting me off my feet like he used to do when he was a teenager. For a moment, everything was perfect. Then he introduced us. "Victoria, this is my mother. Mama, this is Victoria." I reached out to hug her, that's how we do things in my family, but she stepped back and extended her hand instead. "So nice to finally meet you," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Marcus has told me so much about you. So much about you." The way she said it. Like I was a character in a story. Something to be understood and categorized. I shook her hand and smiled back. "It's wonderful to meet you, sweetheart. My boy can't stop talking about you." She laughed, a light, tinkling sound, and looked at Marcus. "He's such a mama's boy," she said. It was supposed to be affectionate, but something about her tone felt like a needle. I ignored it. I was determined to like this girl who made my son so happy. During dinner that evening, I learned about Victoria's family. Her father was a surgeon. Her mother was a lawyer. They lived in a historic colonial home in Greenwich. They summered in the Hamptons. They wintered in Aspen. Every detail felt like a reminder of everything I couldn't give Marcus. Everything I wasn't. But what hurt most was watching my son through Victoria's eyes. The way he carefully monitored his speech, avoiding the southern phrases I had taught him. The way he ordered wine with French pronunciation I knew he had just learned. The way he seemed embarrassed when I asked the waiter to explain what remoulade was. When Victoria excused herself to go to the restroom, I reached across the table and squeezed Marcus's hand. "I'm so proud of you, baby," I said. "Your daddy would be over the moon." Something flickered in his eyes. Discomfort? Shame? I couldn't tell. "Thanks, Mama," he said quickly, pulling his hand away. "Hey, listen, Victoria's parents are meeting us for brunch tomorrow. I want you to be there, but..." "But what?" He hesitated. "Just, maybe don't tell too many stories about when I was growing up. You know, the stuff about the food stamps and me wearing secondhand clothes. Victoria's family is kind of traditional. I don't want them to think..." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. "I don't want them to think I'm like you." I felt something crack inside me. Not break, not yet, just crack. A hairline fracture in the foundation of everything I had believed. "Of course, baby," I heard myself say. "I understand." But I didn't understand. I didn't understand how the child I had sacrificed everything for could be ashamed of that sacrifice. I didn't understand how love could be repaid with embarrassment. I went back to Georgia the next day. I told Marcus I had to get back to work, but the truth was I couldn't sit at that brunch table and pretend to be something I wasn't. I couldn't watch my son perform a version of himself that erased me. On the plane home, I cried into a tiny airline napkin and told myself it was just nerves. Just a phase. Once Marcus started his career, once he got settled, things would go back to normal. I had no idea that normal was already gone forever. Marcus proposed to Victoria 8 months later. He called me on a Tuesday evening, voice bursting with excitement. She said, "Yes, Mama. We're getting married." I forced enthusiasm into my voice. "Oh, baby, that's wonderful. I'm so happy for you." And part of me was happy. Part of me genuinely wanted my son to find love and build a family. But another part, the part one tried to silence, was afraid. Afraid that this marriage would take him further away from me. Afraid that Victoria would never see me as family. The engagement was long, 2 years, because Victoria insisted on a proper wedding. During those 2 years, I saw my son exactly 4 times. Once for Thanksgiving, Victoria came and spent the entire visit on her phone. Once for Christmas, I flew up to Connecticut. Her family's house made me feel like a museum visitor. Twice for short weekend visits where Marcus seemed distracted and eager to leave. Each visit, I noticed the distance growing. The phone calls went from every Sunday to every other week to once a month. The conversations went from long and intimate to brief and surface level. My son was slipping away, and I didn't know how to hold on. I told myself it was normal. He was building a life. He was busy. He still loved me. He just showed it differently now. Then came the wedding invitation. It arrived in a thick cream envelope, embossed with gold lettering. Everything about it screamed money. When I opened it, a small card fell out. "We request the honor of your presence at the wedding of Victoria Rose Montgomery and Marcus Allen Mitchell." Below that, in Victoria's handwriting: "Dear Mrs. Mitchell, we're so excited to have you at the wedding. I've taken the liberty of arranging accommodation for you at a hotel near the venue. Let Marcus know if you need help booking your flight. Best, Victoria." It was polite. Perfectly polite. But something about it felt off. Why was Victoria writing to me instead of Marcus? Why was she arranging my accommodation at a hotel instead of inviting me to stay with family? I called Marcus that night. "Hey, Mama, you got the invitation?" "I did, baby. It's beautiful. But I was wondering, where exactly am I staying?" The card mentioned a hotel. A pause. The kind of pause that tells you someone is choosing their words carefully. Yeah, about that. Victoria's family has a lot of traditions around the wedding. The bride's family hosts everything, and they have specific arrangements. The hotel is really nice, though. I made sure of that. Specific arrangements. I see, I said slowly. And what about the wedding itself? Am I part of the ceremony at all? Another pause. Longer this time. Mama, you know I love you. But Victoria's family has very specific ideas about how things should be done. It's a big wedding, 300 guests, and there are protocols. I didn't want to make waves. Protocols. Waves. Marcus, I said, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands, I am your mother. Your only living parent. Am I walking down the aisle with you? Am I giving a toast? Am I doing anything at this wedding besides sitting in the audience? Silence. Then, you're listed as mother of the groom, Mama. Your seat is reserved in the front row. But, the aisle walk is just going to be me and my groomsmen. And the toasts are Victoria's father and her maid of honor. It's what her family does. I closed my eyes. Felt that crack inside me widen just a little more. I see. Please don't be upset, Mama. You know I'm not upset, baby. I'm just tired. We'll talk soon, okay? I hung up before he could respond. I sat in my dark living room for 2 hours, staring at that invitation with its gold lettering and cream paper and everything it represented. My son was getting married. And I was an afterthought. The wedding was beautiful. I'll give Victoria's family that. They had excellent taste and unlimited resources. The ceremony was held at a historic estate in Connecticut. There were ice sculptures. There was a 12-piece orchestra. There were peacocks, actual peacocks, wandering the grounds. I wore a dress I had saved 3 months to afford. I did my own hair because I couldn't justify the salon expense. I arrived at the hotel the night before, alone, while Victoria's family hosted a rehearsal dinner I wasn't invited to. It's just immediate family, Marcus explained over the phone. Victoria's aunts and uncles and grandparents. You understand. I understood. I understood perfectly. At the wedding, I sat in the front row as promised. I watched my son stand at the altar in a tuxedo that cost more than I made in a month. I watched him smile at Victoria like she was the only person in the world. I watched them exchange vows, exchange rings, exchange a life that no longer seemed to include me. During the reception, I was seated at table 12. Not at the head table with the wedding party. Not even at a table with Marcus's college friends who might remember meeting me. I was at a table with Victoria's former co-workers from her brief stint at a marketing firm. They were polite but uninterested. I spent most of the reception watching from a distance as my son danced, laughed, and celebrated without once looking my way. At one point, Victoria's mother approached me. She was elegant in a way that made me feel small, perfectly coiffed, draped in real diamonds, smelling of expensive perfume. You must be Marcus's mother, she said with a practiced smile. He speaks so fondly of you. Thank you, I said. You have a beautiful daughter. And this wedding is just incredible. She nodded, accepting the compliment as her due. We wanted to give them the best start possible. You know how important family is. Family. I wanted to ask her, is that why I'm at table 12? Is that why my son didn't walk down the aisle with me? Is that why I wasn't invited to the rehearsal dinner or the bridal shower or any of the planning that happened over 2 years? But I didn't ask. I just smiled and said, yes, ma'am, I surely do. After she walked away, I excused myself to the bathroom. I locked myself in a stall and cried as quietly as I could, stuffing my mouth with toilet paper to muffle the sounds. When I came out, I looked at myself in the mirror. My mascara had run. My eyes were red. My hair was starting to fall flat. Pull yourself together, Lorraine. This is your son's wedding day. Whatever else is happening, be happy for him. I fixed my makeup. I smoothed my dress. I went back out and smiled for the rest of the night. At midnight, when the party was finally winding down, Marcus found me by the coat check. Hey, Mama. You heading out? Yes, baby. It's late, and my flight is early tomorrow. He hugged me, a real hug, the kind he used to give me when he was young. For a moment, I felt like everything might be okay. Thank you for coming, he said. I know it was a lot. A lot. I pulled back and looked at his face. My beautiful boy. My whole world. I love you, Marcus. I'm proud of the man you've become. He smiled. But something behind his eyes was already somewhere else. Already with Victoria. Already in his new life. Love you too, Mama. Let's do dinner soon, okay? Okay, baby. We didn't do dinner soon. We didn't do dinner for another 8 months. And by then, everything had changed. 3 years after the wedding, I made the biggest mistake of my life. Marcus called me one afternoon, more animated than I'd heard him in years. He and Victoria had found their dream home. A beautiful 4-bedroom colonial in Fairfield County. Great schools, quiet neighborhood, perfect for starting a family. The only problem is the down payment, he said. The housing market is crazy right now. We need to put down 20% to get the rate we want, and we're about $50,000 short. I knew what was coming before he said it. Mama, I hate to ask, but you still have some equity in the house, right? The one you and Dad bought? I was thinking maybe you could. How much do you need? $50,000 would be amazing. But we could make do with $50,000. The last of my equity. The house that Robert and I had bought together, that I had sacrificed everything to keep, that represented the only financial security I had for retirement. I should have said no. Any sensible person would have said no. But I heard my mama's voice in my head, you pour love into your children like water into good soil. One day, that love grows into something that shelters you. I was 60 years old. I had worked my entire life. I had given everything to my son. And now he was asking for the last of what I had. I'll have the money to you by next week, I said. Mama, are you sure? I don't want. I'm sure, baby. That's what family does. He was quiet for a moment. Then, thank you, Mama. You don't know what this means to us. To me. To us. Even in his gratitude, Victoria came first. There's one thing, I said slowly. Since I'm putting all this money into the house, maybe I could stay with you sometimes? You know, when I visit? Instead of a hotel? I hated how small my voice sounded. Like I was asking permission to exist in my own son's life. Of course, Mama. This'll be your home too. We'll even fix up one of the bedrooms just for you. Victoria's already talking about it. I smiled even though he couldn't see me. That sounds wonderful, baby. Just wonderful. I refinanced my house. I took out $50,000 and wired it to Marcus. I watched my equity disappear and told myself it was an investment. An investment in my son's happiness. An investment in my future. Because he promised, didn't he? He promised I would always have a place with him. The first year wasn't bad. I visited twice, once in spring, once for Thanksgiving. Victoria was cordial, if not warm. The guest bedroom was nice, if impersonal. I helped with housework, cooked meals, tried to make myself useful without being intrusive. But I noticed things. I noticed how Victoria stiffened whenever I touched Marcus. I noticed how she found reasons to leave the room when I told stories about his childhood. I noticed how she made little comments that felt like paper cuts. Marcus, your mother is using the wrong towels, those are the decorative ones. Lorraine, I appreciate you cooking, but we usually eat gluten-free. Maybe check with me before making dinner? It's so sweet how close you two are. My family wasn't so enmeshed. Enmeshed. I had to look up the word later. It means unhealthily interconnected. Too close. Suffocating. That's how Victoria saw my love for my son. As something sick. I tried to adjust. I tried to be less present, less helpful, less me. I stopped touching Marcus when Victoria was around. I stopped telling stories about the past. I stopped cooking and cleaning and doing all the things that made me feel useful. But nothing I did was ever enough. By the second year, the invitations to visit became less frequent. Marcus called less often. When I asked about coming for Christmas, he hesitated. Victoria's family is hosting this year. Big thing at her parents' house. You know how they are about their traditions. Their traditions. Maybe I could come for New Year's? I suggested. Another hesitation. Let me talk to Victoria and get back to you. He didn't get back to me. I spent Christmas alone in my house in Georgia, eating takeout Chinese food and watching old movies. I told myself he was busy. Told myself newlyweds needed space. Told myself my mama's words were still true, even when everything around me screamed they weren't. Then came the phone call that changed everything. It was a Tuesday in March. I was getting ready for bed when my phone rang. Marcus's name on the screen. Hey, baby. This is a nice surprise. Mama. His voice was strange. Nervous. Victoria and I have been talking. About living arrangements. My stomach dropped. Living arrangements? Yeah. See, the thing is, Victoria's mother isn't doing well. She's been diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's. It's really hard on Victoria. She wants her mom to come live with us. I sat down on my bed, legs suddenly weak. I'm so sorry to hear about Mrs. Montgomery. That's awful. Thanks, Mama. So here's the thing. Victoria's been thinking, since we have space and everything, maybe it would be good if her mom moved in. You know, so we can take care of her. That's very kind of you both. Family should take care of family. A long pause. Then, Mama, we only have 4 bedrooms. And with Victoria's mom needing specialized care, we need to turn the spare room into a kind of medical suite. Which means... He didn't finish. He didn't have to. Which means my room, I said quietly. It's not like you can't visit, Mama. You can always stay in a hotel when you come. It's just, we need the space right now. For Victoria's mom. I sat in the darkness, phone pressed to my ear, feeling something inside me go cold. Marcus, I said carefully, I gave you $50,000 for that house. $50,000 from my retirement. You promised I would always have a place there. And you do, Mama. Just not a permanent place. Not right now. Victoria says. Victoria says. My voice came out sharper than I intended. What do you say, Marcus? What does my son say? Silence. Then, quietly, I say we need to do what's right for our family. Victoria is my family now, Mama. Her mother is my family. I have to put them first. Victoria is my family now. The words hit me like a physical blow. I see, I managed. And what about me? Am I not your family? Of course you are. But you're different. You can take care of yourself. Victoria's mom can't. It's about priorities, Mama. Priorities. Thank you for explaining that to me, Marcus. I understand perfectly now. Mama, don't be like that. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Good night, Marcus. Give my condolences to Victoria about her mother. I hung up before he could respond. I turned off my phone. I sat in the dark for a long, long time. And somewhere in that darkness, something inside me finally broke. Over the next 2 years, I watched my son become a stranger. The calls stopped almost entirely. When I reached out, I got brief texts in response. Marcus was busy. Marcus had work. Marcus was dealing with his mother-in-law's health. There was always an excuse. I stopped visiting. Without a room of my own, I felt like a burden even asking. The one time I suggested staying at a nearby hotel and just coming for dinner, Marcus said it wasn't a good time. I spent my 62nd birthday alone. 63rd alone. I retired from the hospital with a small party and a smaller pension. I looked at my house, the house I had nearly bankrupted myself to keep, the house I had sacrificed my retirement for, and wondered what any of it had been for. Then came the Facebook post. I wasn't on Facebook much, but I kept an account to see pictures of Marcus and follow updates from church friends. One day, scrolling through my feed, I saw a photo that stopped my heart. It was Marcus, Victoria, and an older white woman I didn't recognize. They were standing in front of their house, my money's house, holding a banner that read, "Welcome home, Mom." The caption, from Victoria, "So blessed to have my beautiful mother living with us. Family is everything." 2 hearts. I looked at that picture for a long time. At Victoria's beaming smile. At Marcus's arm around her. At the woman who had taken my place. Then I looked at the comments. Hundreds of them. People gushing about what wonderful people Marcus and Victoria were. What devoted children. What an example of family values. And then I saw it. A comment from one of Victoria's friends. You two are angels. Especially after everything Marcus's mother put you through. So glad he finally set boundaries. Victoria's response. Thank you. It wasn't easy, but Marcus realized his mother's behavior was toxic. We're in such a healthier place now. Folded hands. Toxic. My behavior was toxic. I read that word over and over until it lost all meaning. Then I closed Facebook and never opened it again. I wish I could say I stood up for myself. That I confronted Marcus, demanded answers, fought for my place in his life. But the truth is, I was tired. Bone-deep tired in a way that had nothing to do with age. I had spent my whole life pouring love into my son like water into soil. And the thing that grew wasn't shelter. It was a wall. I stopped calling. Stopped texting. Stopped hoping that things would change. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. I went to church. I tended my garden. I volunteered at the food bank. I built a life that didn't include my son because I had no choice. And then, 18 months later, I got the letter. It arrived on a Thursday afternoon. A thick envelope with a law firm's return address in Connecticut. I opened it with shaking hands, not knowing what to expect. Divorce papers from a marriage I wasn't part of? Legal threats I couldn't understand? It was neither. It was a formal notice from the law offices of Harrison, Wells and Park, informing me that my son, Marcus Allen Mitchell, and his wife, Victoria Rose Montgomery Mitchell, were requesting that I formally relinquish any claim to their property. I read the letter 3 times before the words made sense. Apparently, my $50,000 gift could be legally interpreted as an investment. If I were to die, my estate could potentially make a claim on their home. The letter suggested that I sign a document confirming the money was a gift with no expectation of repayment or ownership stake. At the bottom of the letter, in Victoria's handwriting, Lorraine, this is just a formality. Nothing personal. V. Nothing personal. $50,000 of my life savings. The promise that I would always have a home. The years of sacrifice and love and hope. Nothing personal. I laughed. Sitting alone in my kitchen, I laughed until I cried, and then I cried until I couldn't anymore. Then I did something I should have done years ago. I called a lawyer. Her name was Patricia Coleman. She was an old friend from church, recently retired from a career in family law. I hadn't wanted to burden her with my problems, but I didn't know where else to turn. Lorraine, she said after I explained everything, why didn't you come to me sooner? I was embarrassed, I admitted. What kind of mother gets thrown away by her own son? The kind who loved too much and was punished for it, she said firmly. Now let me see those documents. I gave her everything. The refinancing paperwork. The wire transfer records. The texts and emails from Marcus. The wedding invitation. The letter from the lawyers. She studied it all with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Lorraine, she finally said, you have options. That money wasn't documented as a gift. There's no gift letter, no clear agreement. A court could potentially view it as a loan. I don't want to sue my son, I said immediately. I just want. I trailed off, realizing I didn't know what I wanted. My son back? That son was gone, if he had ever existed at all. My money? Money couldn't fix what was broken. Justice? What did justice even look like when your own child betrays you? You don't have to decide anything now, Patricia said gently. But let me hold on to these documents. Let me do some research. And whatever you decide, promise me you won't sign that relinquishment letter. Not yet. I promised. And for the first time in years, I felt something other than defeated. I felt angry. 2 weeks later, Patricia called with news I never expected. Lorraine, I did some digging. And I found something you need to see. We met at her office. She had printed out a stack of documents, highlighted in yellow and pink. I ran a background check on Marcus and Victoria. Standard stuff, property records, business filings, court documents. She paused. Victoria's mother doesn't have Alzheimer's. I stared at her. What? I pulled her medical insurance records, don't ask how, I have friends, and there's no Alzheimer's diagnosis. No dementia. Nothing. The woman is 68 years old and in perfect health. She goes to yoga 3 times a week. The room seemed to spin. Then why did Marcus say? I don't know, Patricia said grimly. But I have some theories. Here, look at this. She handed me another document. A property filing from 2 years ago. Marcus and Victoria had added a name to the deed of their house. Elizabeth Rose Montgomery. Victoria's mother. They made her mother a co-owner, Patricia explained. Which means if something happens to Marcus and Victoria, the house goes to her. Not to you. Not to any children they might have. Her. I felt sick. Physically, genuinely sick. They lied to me, I whispered. They lied about her being sick so they could kick me out and make her a co-owner of my son's house. The house I paid for. It looks that way. But why? What did I ever do to them? Patricia was quiet for a moment. Then she said something I'll never forget. Lorraine, some people don't need a reason to be cruel. They just need an opportunity. And you gave them one by loving your son more than you loved yourself. I sat with those words for a long time. You loved your son more than you loved yourself. It was true. It had always been true. From the moment they placed him in my arms, I had poured everything into him, my time, my energy, my money, my heart. I had made his happiness my identity. His success my validation. His love my reason for being. And when that love was withdrawn, I had nothing left. But sitting in Patricia's office, looking at the evidence of my son's betrayal, something shifted inside me. Not the crack this time. Something new. Something harder. Anger. Pure, righteous, cleansing anger. They had lied to me. They had stolen from me. They had thrown me away like garbage and then asked me to sign paperwork making it official. And they had done it all while posting pictures on Facebook about the importance of family. Patricia, I said slowly, you said I have options. Tell me all of them. I didn't sleep much over the next few weeks. I was too busy planning. Patricia helped me understand my legal position. The $50,000, undocumented as a gift, could potentially be claimed as a loan. If Marcus refused to repay it, I could file a lien against the property. It wouldn't give me the house, but it would complicate their lives considerably. But that wasn't what I wanted. What I wanted was something money couldn't buy. I wanted my son to understand what he had done. I wanted Victoria to face consequences for her cruelty. I wanted the truth to come out. And then, as if God himself was listening, the opportunity arrived. Marcus called me. It was the first time he had called in over a year. I almost didn't answer. Mama? It's Marcus. I know who it is. My voice was cool. Controlled. What do you want? Mama, please. I know we haven't talked in a while, but something happened. Something bad. A year ago, I would have panicked. I would have dropped everything to help my son, no matter how he had treated me. But that version of me was gone. What happened? Victoria's company is being investigated. Some kind of fraud thing. She's not involved, she swears she's not, but the legal fees are killing us. And with the mortgage and everything else. I waited. Mama, I need help. I know I have no right to ask after everything, but you're my mother. You've always been there for me. Please. I'll do anything. I'll do anything. The same words I had thought 1,000 times over the years. The same desperate promise I had made to myself about him. Now he was making them to me. How much do you need? I heard myself ask. 30,000. Maybe 40. I'll pay you back, Mama. I swear on Dad's grave. Dad's grave. The final manipulation. Using the memory of my dead husband to pull at my heartstrings. But my heartstrings were calcified now. Hardened by years of neglect and betrayal. Marcus, I said carefully, I need to see you. In person. If you want my help, you need to come to Georgia. You need to sit across from me and explain why I should trust you after everything you've done. Silence. Then, I can fly down next week. Is that okay? That's fine. And Marcus? Come alone. I don't want to see Victoria. Another pause. Okay, Mama. Whatever you need. I hung up and looked at the phone in my hand. He was coming. After all this time, my son was coming home. And he had no idea what was waiting for him. I prepared for Marcus's visit like a general preparing for battle. I cleaned the house until it sparkled. I cooked all his favorite foods, fried chicken, macaroni and cheese, collard greens, sweet potato pie. I laid out old photo albums on the coffee table. Pictures of Marcus as a baby. Marcus at his first day of school. Marcus at graduation. Marcus and Robert, father and son, in happier times. I wanted him to remember. I wanted him to feel the weight of what he had thrown away. Patricia came over the night before to help me organize the documents. We created a folder containing everything: the refinancing paperwork, the wire transfers, the property filings showing Victoria's mother as co-owner, the medical records proving there was no Alzheimer's. "Are you sure about this?" Patricia asked. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." Marcus arrived at noon on Saturday. I watched through the window as he pulled up in a rental car. He looked older than I remembered. More tired. There were lines on his face that hadn't been there before. Gray at his temples. My baby is getting old, I thought. And I wasn't there to see it happen. He knocked on the door, knocked, like a stranger, and I opened it. "Hey, Mama." For a moment, looking at his face, I almost forgot everything. Almost opened my arms and pulled him close like I had done 1,000 times before. Almost said, "It's okay, baby, whatever you need, Mama's here." But then I remembered the Facebook post. His mother's behavior was toxic. I remembered the letter from the lawyers. Nothing personal. I remembered the room that was supposed to be mine, now occupied by a woman with perfect health and a yoga habit. "Come in, Marcus," I said coolly. "We have a lot to discuss." We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I had helped him with homework, where I had served countless dinners, where I had cried alone on so many holidays. I served him food. He ate hungrily. Victoria probably had him on some kind of diet. He talked about his job, his house, his life. He talked about Victoria's legal troubles with the rehearsed vagueness of someone who's been coached on what to say. He didn't ask about me. Not once. Finally, when the plates were cleared, I put the folder on the table. "What's this?" he asked. "Open it." He did. I watched his face as he flipped through the documents. The color drained from his cheeks. His hands started to tremble. "Mama, I can explain." "Can you?" I cut him off. "Can you explain why you told me Victoria's mother had Alzheimer's when she's perfectly healthy? Can you explain why you kicked me out of my room so she could move in? Can you explain why you added her to the deed of a house that my money paid for?" It's not. "Can you explain why you let your wife call me toxic on Facebook? Why you let her friends celebrate that you finally set boundaries with me? Can you explain why I spent 2 Christmases alone while you played happy family with people who have never sacrificed a single thing for you?" His mouth opened and closed. No words came out. I leaned forward, my voice steady as stone. "I gave you everything, Marcus. Everything. I worked 3 jobs to send you to college. I took out a second mortgage so you could have your degree. I refinanced my house, my retirement, my security, so you could have your dream home. And what did I get in return?" Tears were running down his face now. "I felt nothing. I got a seat at table 12 at your wedding. I got erased from your life story. I got lied to, manipulated, and discarded like I was nothing. And then, when I had nothing left to give, you sent me legal papers asking me to make my own erasure official. Mama, please. I'm not finished." My voice cracked for the first time. "I loved you more than my own life, Marcus. I would have walked through fire for you. And you repaid that love by being ashamed of me. By letting your wife convince you that my love was toxic. By choosing her mother, a woman who has given you nothing, over the woman who gave you life." I stood up, moving to the window. I couldn't look at him anymore. "I'm not giving you $30,000, Marcus. I'm not giving you 30 cents. And I'm not signing that relinquishment letter. Patricia says I have grounds to file a claim against your property. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. That depends on what happens next. What do you want? His voice was barely a whisper. I turned back to face him. I want you to understand what you did. Really understand. Not apologize because you need something from me. Not promise to change because you're scared. I want you to look inside yourself and see the truth of who you've become. I walked to the coffee table and picked up one of the photo albums. The one from his childhood. I brought it to him and placed it in his hands. Look at these pictures, Marcus. Look at the little boy who used to tell me I was the best mama in the whole world. Look at the teenager who promised he would always take care of me. Look at the man who hugged me at his graduation and said he would make me proud. He was sobbing now, clutching the album like a lifeline. What happened to that boy, Marcus? Where did he go? I don't know, he choked out. I don't know, Mama. I just. Victoria said, she made me think. Victoria said. Victoria made you think. I shook my head slowly. You're 40 years old, Marcus. At what point do you take responsibility for your own choices? He had no answer. Of course he didn't. I sat back down across from him. The anger was draining out of me now, leaving something else in its place. Something that felt almost like peace. I don't hate you, Marcus. I couldn't hate you if I tried. You're my son. You're the best thing I ever did. But I can't keep letting you hurt me. I can't keep pouring love into soil that's been poisoned. What does that mean? It means I'm done, baby. Not done loving you, I'll love you until the day I die. But done sacrificing myself for someone who doesn't see my worth. Done waiting by the phone. Done pretending everything is okay when it's not. I reached across the table and took his hand. If you want me in your life, you have to choose me. Actively, consistently, choose me. Not when it's convenient. Not when you need something. Every day. The way I chose you every day for 40 years. And if Victoria won't accept that? Then you have a decision to make. And whatever you decide, I'll respect it. But I won't be waiting in the shadows anymore, hoping for scraps of your attention. I squeezed his hand one last time, then let go. The guest room is made up. You can stay tonight if you want. But tomorrow, I need you to go home and think about what kind of man you want to be. What kind of son? What kind of husband? Mama. That's all I have to say, Marcus. The rest is up to you. Marcus left the next morning. We didn't talk much. He hugged me at the door, a real hug, the kind he used to give, and said he was sorry. Really, truly sorry. I accepted his apology. But I didn't tell him everything was forgiven. Some wounds take longer to heal than others. Weeks passed. I heard nothing from him. I focused on my own life, my garden, my church, my friends, myself. For the first time in decades, I wasn't waiting for Marcus. I was living. Then, 2 months later, I got a letter. Not from lawyers this time. From Marcus. Handwritten, 6 pages long. He told me everything. How Victoria had slowly turned him against me over the years. How she had convinced him that my love was codependent, my involvement unhealthy, my presence a threat to their marriage. How our mother's supposed illness was Victoria's idea, a way to get me out while gaining a co-owner who would protect Victoria's interests in case of divorce. He told me he had started therapy. That he was seeing, for the first time, how manipulated he had been. How he had traded his mother's unconditional love for his wife's conditional approval, and how that trade had cost him everything that mattered. He told me he wasn't asking for forgiveness. He was just asking for a chance. At the end of the letter, I love you, Mama. I always have. I was just too weak and too blind to show it. I'm trying to be stronger now. I hope that one day, you can give me the opportunity to prove it. I read that letter 17 times. And then I wrote back. It's been 3 years since that day. Marcus and Victoria are divorced. It turns out that her company's fraud investigation uncovered some things Victoria was very much involved in. She's serving 18 months in federal prison for wire fraud. Her mother moved back to Connecticut. The house, my money's house, was sold in the divorce. Marcus paid me back the $50,000 from his share. I didn't ask him to. He insisted. Marcus lives in Atlanta now, 40 minutes from me. He visits every Sunday for dinner. He calls me 3 times a week, just to talk. He's dating a lovely woman named Keisha, a middle school teacher who was raised by a single mother and understands what that means. I like her, I told Marcus last month. She has kind eyes. She reminds me of you, Mama, he said. Strong. Loving. No nonsense. Boy, if you're comparing your girlfriend to your mama, you might need more therapy. We laughed. We're able to laugh now. It took a long time, but we got there. I'm 66 years old now. My house is paid off. Marcus insisted on that too, said it was the least he could do. I have my garden, my church, my friends. I have Sunday dinners with my son and the hope of grandchildren someday. But more importantly, I have myself. I spent so many years defining my worth by what I could give to others. My value is measured in sacrifice, in selflessness, in how much I could pour out without expecting anything in return. Now I know better. My worth isn't in what I give. It's in who I am. I am Lorraine Mitchell. I am a survivor. I am a mother who loved fiercely and was hurt deeply and found a way to heal anyway. I am a woman who finally learned that the shelter she was planting wasn't supposed to come from someone else's love, it was supposed to come from her own. My mama was wrong about one thing and right about another. She was wrong when she said love poured into children grows into shelter for the parent. That's not always true. Sometimes children take, and there's no shelter at all. Sometimes the soil is poisoned by people who don't understand what real love costs. But she was right when she said family is sacred. She just didn't tell me that family isn't only the people you're born to. Family is the people who show up. Who choose you. Who love you not because they have to, but because they want to. And sometimes, after great pain and great healing, family can also be the children who come back. Who do the work. Who learn, finally, what love really means. Marcus is that kind of family now. Not because he's my blood, but because he earned it. And so am I. I've shared my story with you tonight because I know there's someone out there who needed to hear it. Maybe you're a mother who's been pushed aside by your child's spouse. Maybe you're a grandparent who's been forgotten. Maybe you're someone who gave everything to someone else and got nothing in return. Wherever you are, whatever you're facing, I want you to know this. Your love has value. Your sacrifice has meaning. And you deserve to be chosen, not just tolerated. Don't let anyone convince you that loving deeply makes you toxic. Don't let anyone manipulate you into erasing yourself for their comfort. Don't let anyone take without ever giving back. You are worthy of love that doesn't come with conditions. You are worthy of family that shows up. You are worthy of a life that centers your happiness, not just everyone else's. I learned that lesson late. But I learned it. And now I'm passing it on to you. So let me ask you this, before I go. Who have you been pouring your love into? And are they giving you shelter, or just taking your reign? Think about that. Sit with it. And if you need to make some changes, know that it's never too late. It's never too late to choose yourself. Good night, and God bless. Lorraine.